Welcome to another Complete Developer Raw, a live show with Will and BJ. How you guys doing today? So, textbooks, man. Textbooks. Med school spoiled me on them, to be honest with you. I had forgotten just how redundant non-medical textbooks could be.
Did you also forget how redundant they could be?
Yes, I forgot how redundant they could be.
Yeah.
Like no joke. I've been reading. I think we're on chapter 4 now, and it's like they say, "Hey, we're going to talk about this. Here's what we're going to talk about. Here's the thing, details about it. Here's some examples of what we just talked about, where we talk about it again. Oh, hey, here's a chapter summary, which is all you really need to read."
Yeah.
I remember this now from undergrad. It's like, oh, right, I only need to read the chapter summary because that has all the pertinent information in it. But some of the examples were good for helping out with the assignments. Speaking of which, my very first assignment in grad school was due today. Well, I guess it's not my first ever assignment in grad school, but this particular instance of graduate school.
So out of the class, graduate school. Since you've been doing Java anyway, I guess there's a graduate school factory involved here somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere there. So yeah, I turned it in. Got some really great ideas for challenges for Dev Launchpad out of the assignment. The challenge was not even anything to do with the assignment. It was just the idea of the assignment gave me an idea for that, so it kind of flowed.
Nice.
Really cool. Also, got a new earring. Actually, I got 3 new earrings. I rode out to...
But you only have 2 ears.
I know, that's how
Never
cool
mind.
I am.
Not asking.
Actually, I only have 1 ear pierced.
Okay.
So, but I rode out to Mystic Ink, which is a tattoo piercing place out in Bon Aqua, Tennessee. It's about 30 minutes from here. Pretty cool. Great place. The guy that owns it, like normally they only sell piercings, or they only sell earrings when they do piercings, but I didn't feel like driving into Nashville during rush hour.
Yeah.
So I drove out there because they had just some of the basic things that I wanted, and he ended up giving me a discount. He's like, I've not had anybody drive out here for that.
Yeah.
Out of Nashville for it. I'm like, yeah, I just didn't really want to. Like, I was on my bike, and I didn't really want to go into town. So
Yeah, I don't blame you.
what's going on with you?
Well, this week I spoke at Nashville Software School. It was, the surviving developer whiteboard interviews thing again. And so that was pretty cool. I've gotten really, really comfortable with that talk. So it ends up, it's gotten a little shorter. Like it was supposed to be an hour talk, and I think it's more like 40 minutes now, and then I answer questions.
That sounds about right.
This was a real good group. They had a lot of questions. So I was there actually longer than I probably needed to be because, I'm working from home, so it wasn't a big deal, but kind of got home a little late.
They got in touch with me.
Yeah, I talked to him about that. I was like, hey, Beej is a better speaker than me, so you need to get him out here.
I need a reply to that. I got that email this afternoon. So
yeah, and I pushed the developers role in Scrum talk as a thought. That's all I knew of. So
the code smells tends to be the one that the students want, because I'll go in with 3 or 4 talks and be like, all right, which one do you guys want?
Yeah,
and
just do that.
The students usually pick the code smells because they're like, oh, hey, this is something that I can actually use on the job when I first start. So
sounds fair. So in other news, I got nailed by Windows Update, and I think we talked about this last week, didn't we?
You get nailed a lot by Windows Updates.
Yeah, so this one was magical, and by magical I mean
magical.
Black magic. It for some reason doesn't like my motherboard, and so my network card, when I put it under load, gets saturated, disconnects the media, and will not reconnect. It doesn't matter what you do. You have to bounce Windows completely. So that's a bummer. And the thing has got 2 cards in it, and so it did it to both of them. But it's like, oh, they're both the same chipset. So okay, well, that stinks. And people that do development stuff never copy big files back and forth.
Never, ever.
So that's not really inconvenient. That didn't stop anything. And then it decided that, hey, your sound card, you know how you got 5.1 surround sound? Well, we've got this new cool thing called 2.1 surround sound. It's just the back speakers and the sub. Which
we don't want to damage your ears with those front speakers. That's what it was.
Right, yeah.
It was extreme patriotism.
So they hired somebody from Android, I guess, to help them with that. So that was more than moderately unhelpful. And then I'm getting hard drive controller error warnings in the event log now from a controller that doesn't have anything plugged into it. And it's like saying it can't access the hard drive. And I'm like, yeah, dummy. There's not one there. It's air gapped from you. Like there's never been one in that. Like okay, so anyway, the long and the short of it is that I was already looking at upgrading parts, and upstairs sits a new i7 8700K processor, new motherboard. I got the 32 gig Optane. I got 32 gigs of RAM. Got a brand new big honking case, a little bigger than I thought it was going to be.
It is kind of big.
Yeah. I was like, I thought I got a mid tower. I was like looking at that thing, man, what am I going to do? Like,
it's a massive case. He was showing me all the components up there. It's kind of cool.
You know, I just wonder, you know, it's got a glass side. I'm like thinking, okay, you know, like if you could like level off something in there and like have a ceiling inside there, you could like have a terrarium in the bottom of it because it'd be warm. But like I don't know what like I'm not going to use the whole case, so that was a little bit of a surprise. So anyway, I'm taking that into the office along with my existing machine tomorrow.
It's not a case that's designed for like liquid cooling system, is it?
No.
Okay. Because I know those are bigger for the.
Although it may support that, so that could be it too. And you know, and I know the power supply is going to be in the floor of it too. So. Maybe it won't look so, but it looks big. It looks bigger than the one I've got. So we'll see.
It is bigger than the one you got.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I don't care that much. But yeah. So the junior developer that I work with, my day job, really, really likes doing hardware stuff. Like his eyes light up like a kid at Christmas at the thought of doing hardware, and it just makes me want to day drink. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? You want to put this together? I'll pay you like $50 if you want to put the machine together. Yeah, cool. Because I don't want to do it. I get so nervous putting motherboards in place, and I mean I've done it lots of times, but I've also smoked the ever-loving crap out of several of them. You were there at least once when I let the magic smoke out of a motherboard.
I remember that.
It's just not a favorite thing of mine.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So so far as the podcast is going. Not a whole lot this week going on.
No, it's been calm. At least in that sector of my life.
Yeah, we've just sort of been both working on our own stuff, trying to get a better process down for when we write our outlines and that whole thing. So no big news podcast wise, other than I know we had some people on Twitter, at least one person on Twitter asked for stickers. So I'm going to be down at DevSpace in Huntsville next month, and I'll have stickers and other swag with me. So come down, listen to me talk about developers rolling Scrum, and you know, if you ask, I will provide what I have.
Yeah, and I got family stuff that weekend, so I won't.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to make it.
But I probably will be doing the Developer Launchpad event that Saturday. So you could probably catch me there or at the West Nashville Costco later that day if you're just really stalking or something.
And I will try to remind Will to bring stickers with him. I won't take them all down to Huntsville with me.
Yeah, and you know you'll try to remind me, which means
I'll remind him and he'll completely forget.
I might stick them in my laptop bag so I don't forget.
That's probably a good
idea. We'll see
idea.
what happens.
Yeah.
So you got maybe a 80-20 chance of not getting a sticker.
Yeah. So also we're talking about. I guess we can say this. We're talking about revamping the stickers and maybe even the logo in a few ways. So if you have any ideas for that,
what do you mean? Can we talk about it?
I said we can talk about it.
Oh, I'm like we're the only two people we answer to. Like
I know. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. We can talk about this.
Yes, there's an evil podcast overlord that's going to throw lightning bolts down at us. Actually, they just bean you in the head with a Shure SM58.
Well, we do every now and then like to hold things like back and then have it as a.
We hold back.
Yeah, sometimes we do. we didn't announce the Junior Developer Toolbox podcast until like right before it came out.
That's true.
You
Okay,
know,
fair
and
enough.
in case things don't work out or stuff, but we're looking at that. So yeah, there's something we're doing with the podcast. We're looking at possibly revamping some of our logo stuff and things like that. If you guys have any suggestions, please shoot us an email at neckbeards at completedeveloperpodcast.com.
Beach will receive it. My SMTP is still screwed up.
I forward it to him anyways.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I'm like, Will doesn't even need to know about this. It's not important.
Yeah.
If it's someone sending us their address to send a mug to or something, or not a mug,
Yeah, I'm
a
not
water
in that.
bottle.
I'm not in that process.
So he doesn't need it,
yeah.
but it's only when it's important. Okay, so moving on to questions.
What's the strangest code you've seen a senior developer write? Okay, so today,
That's good.
yeah. So I wrote some funky code today, and it's not bad. Like I have,
To that funky code.
yeah. So like I've got a set of types that are kind of. They serve the same purpose, but they're different. They're for different API endpoints. It's the incoming payload.
Yeah.
And there's validation, and there's certain things that are expected of each of them. And so I have test suites for each of them, and the test suites are implemented with a base generic. And so I was sitting there today, and I'm like, I don't know if I've tested all of these. And I'm thinking, if I add one later, I'm not going to know that I forgot to do the tests. So I wrote tests to test my tests to see that I'm testing all the things I plan to test. So that was a little weird logic.
I follow it, but that is.
Yeah. And so, it wasn't that there's a little bit of funkiness in the code because I'm doing like really nasty link queries over reflection, .NET reflection. So that was, let's see, other nasty or weird code that I've seen a senior dev write.
So I've seen some, in my limited career, I've seen a couple of things. One that comes to mind, it actually taught me some really cool stuff because he was using generics, but he was passing for a where clause a function in.
Yep.
And what was ended up happening is he would do like the query.where for the session provider and
then pass that in.
But what was happening is it was actually passing in as a callback. So it was pulling the entire table and then running the query or running the where clause
After.
in the API. Yeah.
Yeah, so he almost had it right, just
Yeah.
not quite. Didn't understand the whole
Yeah.
deferred
So it was
loading.
like the idea was good. It just the implementation wasn't quite there. And I took this project over after he left. I think for medical reasons or something, like he retired or something. So he may have been like trying to figure it out when I took over.
Yeah, and you never know.
Yeah, so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but the other strangest thing I've really seen was when I first started, we had an API developer who had a lot of experience with like web forms, VB.net, and a little bit of MVC. Mostly web forms is what she'd done, and then a lot of SQL.
Yeah.
And so we were in the process of moving to like web API and Angular for the front end. And she was wanting to, to learn and be able to do things. Maybe a little bit of resume driven development. Okay, there was, let's just be honest, in her desire to do that. But also she was wanting to move along with the team. And some of the Angular code, man, it just... Though I gotta say, there's a couple of times I looked back at that application and I was like, oh, is this when she was helping out and writing some Angular code? And then I realized, no, that was me.
Yeah, that's usually the worst. I've seen a lot of stuff, right, over the years. I've done a lot of stuff over the years, like have .NET code that calls a C DLL that I wrote that wasn't sufficiently fast, so I had inline assembler in there. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily strange. It's maybe like I was really not looking at the problem right, and that's why I was doing that, because I was doing it on one thread.
Yeah.
And what I should have been doing was spinning off multiple threads instead of trying to make one thread just crazy fast, because it was like I was actually doing bulk processing. So it's just stuff like that. It's what gets senior devs more than anything is like weird assumptions. So
Yeah. We ran into a little issue today where two processes that were built separately, we found that they had some, like, if you did something, like, it allowed you to do something that really wasn't part of the business process, and so it was never accounted for. And so we're having to go back in and be like, all right, we need to figure out what the business team wants to do, how they want to handle this, so that we can come in and keep them from crossing streams, basically.
Yeah.
It's like the Ghostbusters things, don't cross the streams. All right, moving on to the next question. I told my boss that I'm going to resign, and he offered almost twice my current salary. What should I do?
Okay, so when you get a counteroffer, that means that they really need you. So that's good. However, what you've done by saying that you're going to resign is you've put that idea in your head of what the world looks like without you. And so the boss is reacting from fear, but you take that doubled salary, what will end up happening is that at some point they'll cut you loose when they can find a replacement.
Also,
and that may be good because you may get that double salary for a bit. You may pay off some debts, but like, don't go and buy a new house if you're doing that.
Also, think about the. It sort of depends. If you're a junior developer and they really like you, and so they want to move you to a senior position and offer you senior pay and not like just promotion pay, then that's a little bit of a different story than you're a senior developer and they want to offer you a lot more money to stay on.
Yeah.
Because what they're probably doing there is, all right, we're going to keep them on until we can get some other people trained up in this. The other thing to remember is you're wanting to leave for a reason. I mean,
of course it could be pay.
Yeah, but usually isn't, but yeah, I mean, if it's a matter of the reason you're wanting to leave is you're just not getting paid enough, and I've seen this with
and I agree with you there, because like if you're just not getting paid enough, you go talk to the boss about your pay.
Yeah, I've talked to some people at it's one of the conferences we went to, and one of the ladies was telling me, she's like, yeah, I was a senior developer, and was everybody else was kind of like leaving, the people that I'd worked with and stuff, and she wanted to make more money, so she started looking, and they ended up promoting her to a lead position. So, and she was like, yeah, it pays now really well, and all that stuff. So, I mean, there's that. It really comes down to your reasons for wanting to leave. If you're wanting to leave because of money, and they're solving that problem.
Yeah, I would also say that you need to like go to them about the money thing first before you start even really. I wouldn't say before you start looking, because you do need to be looking in case they go, oh well, screw that guy, get him out of here. Then like you need to be kind of moving those things along in parallel. I'm sorry if anybody on the audio is hearing all the dog barking upstairs. Yeah.
All right. Next question.
I feel I'm getting less than I deserve. Should I tell my boss? So this, kind of dovetails with the other question. Yes. But you got to be sort of careful about how you do it. For one thing, you got to catch them in the right mood. Mm-hmm. You have to catch them when you haven't made major screw-ups recently. Where you've got some wins and stuff like that. Like, you need to be able to go with them and go, okay, here's the benefit I've provided.
Mm-hmm. And it goes back to similarly. That's a weird way of saying it.
Similarly,
but it goes back to the story I was telling in the previous one about the lady who was wanting to leave. She liked the job, but was wanting to leave to make more money.
Yeah,
and they promoted her. It may be a matter of, hey, you're, especially at a larger corporation or in the public sector where you're in
a bucket.
Yeah, and like there's only so far up you can go with the pay range. And so moving you to the next pay range puts you in another level.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think I feel I'm getting less than I deserve. There's two problem words there too. One of them is deserve, and the other one is feel. Mm-hmm. Feeling makes it subjective. Don't do that. Find out what you're actually worth. Deserve is also very, very subjective. Like, you want to get the amount of money that is worth you staying on.
Yeah, I think instead of deserve, worth.
Yeah.
You know, like, again, like Will said, don't come in with the I feel, but come in with data.
Yeah.
You can find it on Glassdoor, or is that right, Glassdoor? Is that the name of
I
it?
think Glassdoor does that, and a couple others do. Stack
Indeed.
Overflow does as well.
Stack Overflow has a
I
has
believe
a salary?
they have like a job salary.
Okay.
survey.
I know, like, a couple of the job websites have salary information where you can look, all right, what is the average developer with my experience making? And then you can go to your boss and be like, hey, look, you know, the average is here, and I'm down here. I would like to get, you know.
And there's another way to play this game too.
Yeah.
Since there's a shortage of developers right now, this is a little subtle way to do this. They're going to at some point be looking to hire somebody, possibly, you know, right at your level. So what you do is when you find that out, you go research that stuff, and then you take that to the boss and go, okay, I got some stuff together for you to help make this easier because I need the help. And in that stuff, you put, here's what the salaries, you know, salary comparisons come out of all these other things.
Yeah. That is a very, very subtle, and you may or may not get a raise out
Yeah,
of that.
you might not.
You really need to talk directly to
But
them.
it's one of the things that it does is it allows them to have evidence and to act on the evidence without you looking like you're pushing for, like, it doesn't create friction, right?
Yeah. I can see that if you're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
But again, with a shortage,
Yeah.
you know, they're gonna.
Well, my thing is what I've done in the past is I've actually taken that in like that and then come back at them, you know, once they've hired the new developer, you know, or they're about to, is then talk to them about it.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Because then they have the evidence, it's sunk in, they just hired somebody at that pay rate, and it's a better spot to be in strategically.
Yeah. So,
Joseph Wickman.
yeah, as I
What
said,
up?
a couple of shout outs, Joseph, and it looked like Tara liked it too. So, hey, y'all. Anyways, so if you haven't already listened to it, the episode that came out today was Acing the Internal Interview. Around this time last year, we had a series on getting a job, and that included several episodes on interviewing. One area that we really didn't cover was the difference between internal and external interviews. A lot of companies prefer to promote from within, either for the prestige of claiming they do so, or because internal candidates are known quantity and quality. There's a difference between interviewing at a new location with people you don't know or you haven't worked with, and interviewing in front of your coworkers or other people in the same company. Your coworkers know your faults, know your strengths, and your weaknesses. What works in one place doesn't in the other, and strategies that you've used before can be detrimental. In this episode, we discuss what you need to know to ace internal interviews, be they for promotion, lateral transfer, or anything else. We start off talking about why you would interview internally with some different types of interviews. Then we talk about the differences between internal and external interviews. But the majority of the episode is spent talking about how to prepare for the interview, strategies to use in the interview, and what to avoid. We close out talking on how to follow up after an internal interview.
And next week's episode will be on API design best practices. At some point, you'll be tasked with designing an API. I'm actually going through this at work right now, which is part of the reason we have this episode, is because that made my life a little bit easier. Whether it's for internal use only, use by business partners, or available to the general public, designing an API can be a daunting task, especially once you start learning about how things can go wrong. You don't want to learn this stuff in production, so we're talking about how to design up front. Designing a web API that lives on a web server can be difficult for a lot of reasons. Not only must you be concerned with security, but also with working well with clients that may be written in any number of other programming languages, running on who knows what platforms. I mean, this could be everything from big server iron to IoT devices, potentially. possibly with a slow or intermittent connection. You'll also have to future-proof your API in such a way that you can safely upgrade it as you discover new things that it needs to do without breaking existing clients, because they don't want to deploy new code just because you changed something. We talk about specific things that you need to consider when building your API so that your users don't hate you. We'll start by having a discussion on some of the most critical pieces of the API, and the most critical one being versioning. Then we go on to discuss error handling, bad user behavior, batch processes, and a lot of other things that you need to consider when you're doing the design. The episode finishes with us going over multi-language support and communication with clients, because it's not just the API design, but it's all the ecosystem that you put around it that has to be considered carefully.
So, guys, that pretty much wraps us up.
Pretty much.
Man,
this is going to be a rough night to record.
It
I can already
is.
tell.
It is, yeah.
Like turning into Shawnee Connery.
You're just bad. Oh man.
Man, we're both screwed. I'm glad you're editing.
I'm always editing.
I know, but
All right,
it's
guys.
only my problem for like an hour and a half. It's your problem for however long.
All right, we're gonna hop off here and record another awesome episode. We will talk to y'all next week.
And hopefully speak in a way that makes us sound intelligent.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
You never know. I like aspirational goals.
Well, I mean, I did have that one line in the last episode, the acing the internal interview. What was it? The temporal proximity of the faux pas.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah, that was fun. Check it out. It was a fun episode. You guys will enjoy it. We will talk to y'all later.